Men can work, do some work like cover, and if they're married and have children, they go home and rest. But women who cover, or like me, I'm a journalist. When I go home, I have to help my children with their homework. I have to cook dinner, or even if I had nannies in the house. You still had to take care of so many household things. So women in that at the time, and even I think up to now, who are journalists have that kind of challenge that if you are committed to your job or to this career, you have to give up something. It cannot be a wholesome or a full, an enjoyable life.
Thought-provoking conversations with the people shaping our country. We uncover stories behind the headlines with influential voices from the Philippines and beyond. This is Manila Bulletin's The Sitdown.
Welcome to another episode of The Sitdown. I'm Jane Kingsu Cheng, Manila Bulletin Lifestyles Editor-at-Large, and today we have with us our Executive Editor, Miss Concha-Colmenares, who is retiring at the end of this month. Hi, Miss Pinky.
Hello, Jane.
Okay, so we'd go straight to the questions, ma'am. When you first walked into a newsroom, did you ever imagine you would one day lead and be more here in Manila Bulletin?
Well, a very long time ago, I entered the Bulletin in 1982. It never crossed my mind that I will be even working as an editor. I was a provinciana from Bacolod, although I had already been editing a daily newspaper there. The Bulletin was an institution, and just stepping into the building was already something very big for me. There, I met the giants in the industry, the columnists, and the correspondents, and the writers or the bylines that I've been reading. So it really never occurred to me I'd be in the newsroom reading it someday. I just wanted to be a reporter.
When did that dream come about? Like, how old were you then?
I think, when did I want to be a
Yes.
reporter, a
Mhm.
journalist? I think it really has always been there because I've always been with the college, the high school, and then the college paper. In the college paper, even before we had exposés, I already did a big story then, I remember, because my brother was, I think, into some kind of trouble with the ROTC or something like that. So I did an in-depth story on what was the ROTC all about. And then I did also several stories about activities around the campus. So it was already there, the want to do something. And of course, at the time, Negros was being featured in the national papers as the place of the social volcano, and the people there were being criticized for the exploiting the sugar workers. So my journalist my journalistic curiosity was whetted by all of these issues, and I just sort of segued into that career. We transferred. Actually, I started in Bacolod. Then when my husband's job was transferred in Manila, we all followed him here. That was the time when Tempo opened, and I joined Tempo. But even before I joined Tempo, I was already a correspondent of Manila Bulletin, while I was also working as editor of a local daily in Bacolod.
So maybe can we go back a few more years? You said it was because of your curiosity that led you to be interested in journalism. What would be the most fulfilling, or what makes you more curious about sharing those stories? What drives you?
I think, I spent most of my life in Saint Scholasticas. And of course, you know that there's a lot of exposure to social responsibility and things like that. So my curiosity, especially to write about why was there such a big gap between the rich and the poor, and why were the sacadas that way or treated that way. It was there. There were issues all around me. And then, in the 70s, then people would walk around with guns. It was a very dangerous time where I lived in the province. So all these things are not normal. So it just, brings you to be more curious. And since I'm a writer and I wanted to be a journalist, I was writing about these things. I remember I wrote a 3-part series for the Bulletin already as a correspondent about the social volcano. I interviewed the Bishop of Negros, who was then a very controversial figure because he was very vocal about social unrest. So it was there, and when I came to Manila, I did not enter lifestyle or arts and culture or motoring. I was in tempo right away. So it was still about stories that mattered, that were really, like police stories. I was only exposed to arts and culture when I transferred to the Bulletin years later.
You mentioned there was a lot of unrest in the 70s.
Yeah.
And I can imagine there were a lot of issues that need to be addressed. And it's also International Women's Month this month. So that's also one of the, I'm sure in the 70s, there was also like inequality in terms of that. Did you ever feel that way as well?
I'm always asked that question. Yeah, in a way, there is always an inequality. But then when you are doing a job, I did not really notice it as much. It was more of what you can devote to your job. Men can work, do some work like cover, and if they're married and have children, they go home and rest. But women who cover, or like me, I'm a journalist. When I go home, I have to help my children with their homework. I have to cook dinner, or even if I had nannies in the house, you still had to take care of so many household things. So women at the time, and even I think up to now, who are journalists, have that kind of challenge that if you are committed to your job or to this career, you have to give up something. It cannot be a wholesome or a full, an enjoyable life. But Jane, to me, this one, to me, and when I mentioned this before to some people here, they were amused. Being a journalist with the Manila Bulletin is not a job to me. It's a vocation. To me, it's a vocation. And people laugh, a vocation, it's like a religious order or something like that. No, it's a commitment. Because journalism is 24/7. It's not something that you have a schedule for. When I talk to trainees who come in, before they come into the Bulletin, I always tell them that be ready to give up personal time. Be ready to give up time with your boyfriend. It's his birthday, but Mayon volcano erupted. You have to put that off. But if you don't, well, then somebody else will write that story for you. But you wouldn't want that story to be written by somebody. You want your byline on that big story. Mm-hmm. So these are the things that I think challenge women more than being, are you having difficult time with having men as colleagues? No, I think it's more of your role as a woman. A woman has an extended role. Even if she is not married, she is required or expected to have some part in taking care of the household, taking care of an aging mother or an aging aunt. I'm sure you agree.
Yes,
you
I
agree
agree.
with that. And I think that's not only my time. It's even
I
this
think
time.
it's us being nurturing.
Yes.
We cannot
Separate.
not do it. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
not. It's part of who we are.
Yes,
So
yes.
even in our jobs, I think it also applies. Like when you said vocation,
Yeah.
it's because we found something we really love to do, and we cannot just look past it.
I think it's even more than love. It's a commitment. It's like you're responsible to come out with news. Like for example, when when a woman decides to be a journalist, there is so much at stake. It's not just I want to be like Maria Ressa or Christian Amampur or whoever is idolized for being a very good woman journalist. It's not only that. It's you have to commit your life to it. That's how I feel. I'm sure other people now would say, Aden, you're crazy. You lost a lot of time. No, but you see, For example, during the COVID, that was New Year's Eve. That's just very recently. There was a New Year's Eve wherein we had already put down the pages. We went home and I get a call. I'm still in the car, and Sir Lori, who was the EIC then, calls and says, "Did you see the news that the President Duterte then, will announce another alert level tonight that will be effective January 2 because the number of cases of COVID has increased." I said, "Yeah, so we have to remat." And that is 7 p.m. of New Year's Eve. So I said, "Oh, so the one who was editing the page had gone home already. So I'm the one now who had to do something about it." What do? You cannot say, "Oh, it's New Year's Eve. Bahala na." It cannot be done that way. You have to make a choice. So my children are all there. The lechon is there, and the festivities for New Year's Eve is laid out on the table. And I had to go to my room and make the remap. So that is not something, the decision to be committed to journalism for women is not one big decision. It's so many times. Every time something comes up, a child has a graduation party and you are called to remap. At this time, things I think are easier for people because you can do it from your house. During my time, I'm home already. I have to stand up and drive all the way back to the bulletin because somebody lost the story for a certain space. So it was like that for many years of my life in the bulletin. But now after the transformation, the digital transformation, it became easier. You do it from your phone.
Yes.
Yeah, but still you give time to it.
So you've been leading the team for so many years. Can you share how it's been from then? And then you mentioned digital transformation as well. How was it adjusting to it?
The digital transformation was not very difficult to adjust to. The difficult time was in the 90s already, when we adjusted to computerization. Because we came from, the hot press, and then we had, then you will laugh at this, but it was a regular scene in the newsroom wherein you see editors cradling the headset of a telephone and typing a story. That is a reporter dictating his story to the desk because there was no email then. So he dictates. Then the fax machine came, so it was easier. We had a fax machine. Then the ATEX system, the computer system came, then we had an email. That was more difficult because by then the editors were old and they did not like to learn because you had to learn a new thing. Yeah, you had delete, control, delete something, or space, everything else. I think in digital transformation, the adjustment was not to the technology, it was more to the deadline. Before, the deadline was 3 p.m., so you had to complete your story by 3 p.m. But when digital first came, your story should come out digitally first, in the online edition first. Then there was no room to say, I will put the story together at 2:30 because it's needed by 3. You had to do it right away. And you know that, Jane, when you are in a party, right, even before the party starts or even before the press con starts, you already have 3 sentences. You have 3 sentences out. During my time, we did not have 3 sentences. We have to make the whole thing. But now I think it's easier. But now I think you have to think faster. Think faster, which I cannot do, although I try to do that. You have to think faster to send something right away. So it's an exciting thing, and I think retiring at this time is exciting because I look back at the way I was fortunate to live through all of the phases of news gathering, news writing, and news and newspaper production, and it's been an exciting time. It's I would like to leave a legacy that will not be outdated by technology.
And so we go through, you mentioned you've been through a lot. It's so interesting that you mentioned from fax machine to computerization. So What from your work, years of work, what are you most proud of? Like, what would be your legacy?
Well, I was thinking of that because you mentioned you'd ask that. And I listed three things that I would like to be my legacy. One is I'd like to always, I'd like to think that I have instilled this responsibility to respect the truth. That, you know, if you say it that way, you'd think that's a no-brainer. We're supposed to respect the truth. But respecting the truth means also you have to take time to fact-check everything. And that time, minsan, is most of the time when you are running after a deadline, it is not available. But early on, during the digital transformation, Manila Bulletin management had already met on the policy of accuracy over speed. I'm sure you all know that. Accuracy over speed. And we'd rather be a little later, 2 minutes, 3 minutes later in posting than be fast and be proven wrong. And because of that, we still enjoy a high trust rating whenever Reuters has their or conducts the research on the most trusted media organizations. We are always high there because of that accuracy over speed. So I think that one I'd like to think that I was able to strengthen that value. Even JJ and Nida, who helped me close the op-ed, they know about fact-checking. We always have to fact-check because you do not know. We do not want to tarnish the name of the bulletin with one mistake. You know, people remember your mistake.
Yeah.
So you just have a wrong date because you type incorrectly, and that will be remembered. And that will tarnish our trust rating. So that's one. Number two, I'd like to have honesty. You know, I would like to think that during my time, I was able to encourage honest behavior. What that means is that among us in a team, we are transparent and we are honest about our intentions. There's no backstabbing or hidden agenda. Everybody is honest about his intention. There's an honest discussion. There's an openness among colleagues because that builds a strong team. Once there's some kind of you veiled truth or veiled discussion, there is a hidden agenda, it tarnishes or it obstructs the workflow. So that's one thing that I hope I was able to build because of my way. I'm sure many of you do not like me because I am too honest. I am known for being tactless, they say. No, it's intentional tactlessness. Because I want to be honest. When I have told people or reporters, you are not a writer. Why are you here? I have told people, why are you wrote this? This looks like they released a headless chicken on the keyboard, and this is what came out. You know, I can insult you very painfully, but my intention is not to hurt you. My intention is to keep the standard that you know. It's not that, kawawa naman siya, she will feel hurt if I will say she cannot write. How about the bulletin? You are diluting our standard. If I will always be saying, kawawa naman to, I will not insult her. No, I am open to that. And I always tell the trainees, I am mean and very frank to you because your readers will be worst. When they read you to have wrong grammar or wrong facts, they will say worse things. I'm sure you know when they have when they interact or they engage. So that's the second one, the honesty. You know, Jane, when some of us, some editors, when they will not choose a story that's given to them, they just say, tsaka na yun, or walang space. They're always very nice until the other person gets it that it's not worth it. I will not waste the other person's time by saying, tsaka na yun, there is no space. I would say, I cannot choose it because it does not have substance. I cannot choose it because it's the same story I read 2 weeks ago. I'm like that. I say it straight. So, because I'm honest, and I want you also to know right away that what you are writing is not good enough. PRs know me for that also. I do not say tsaka na or later on or something. I say no, I cannot choose this. This is too PR-y or this should be branded. So that is one thing I hope through my tactlessness or my very frank nature. That was what I wanted to instill. That people will be more honest so that you cut all the useless the useless flattery and go straight to the point. The third one that I leave as a legacy is training. I started a training session for everybody. I don't know if some of you here have been part of it, but before the pandemic, 2013 up to 2020, or even 2022, because I had Zoom lessons with these people, I had created modules to teach or to train. We had, I have a whole deck of presentations on how to write, how to choose verbs, how to choose nouns. To us, you say, it's not important, but it is very important that you know how to choose your words. It's very important that you write a good lead. Everybody I've trained knows that. The challenge is always give me a lead in the first 7 words of your story. So those are the 3 things I'd like to think or I'd like to, leave behind.
I think you did a very great job, Miss Pinky, because I remember all those stories and reminders. The fact checking was a very critical
Yeah.
critical step for us. Ma'am, can you share more about the training program? Because I think everyone here remembers you for that.
Yeah, thank you for the change. I hope that they will. Um, I am most proud of what would we say, our senior reporters now, many of who I had trained are Jill Educos, who is now, and Bettina Unite, who are now both covering Malacanang. Uh, uh, Martin Sadongdong is covering AFP. Del Nasario, who covers the OST, DOT, and other beats. Joseph Pedrajas, and Jel Santos. The 6 are here now. Uh, I trained more than that. And how nice, they all gave me a despedida party a few weeks ago. And even the ones I trained who had already moved on to other companies came. And I think that is the best compliment for a teacher when they give you notes saying of how much they learned from you and they're now where they are and their writing is better because of you. And I was really very touched that they went out of their way to come and just, did me good luck. The training program that I established, and I hope that we will continue with that later on, was a 5-week program. And the trainees then were paid for that, Jane. That was not free. They were paid just to be there, to have money to spend for fare. So for the first 10 days, they are with me, 10 to 14 days. And they are trained on writing good leads, writing news stories, writing feature stories, writing stories about things that have been written about a million times, like Intramuros. They have so many things have been written about that. So you had to squeeze and look for another angle because that was part of the training. After me, they go to Jepoy, and Jepoy would train them on visuals, and they were even allowed to learn from our apps on how to make pubmats, how to make artwork, how to make timelines, and from that they learn layouting and artwork. Then after that, they go to SOCMED for 10 days. Chrisette trains them. And they know and they learn about making a plan on how to stretch a story. So that was a very complete plan. And unfortunately, we stopped it because some of them would go somewhere else or not use it at all. And of course, it was after the pandemic, we needed so many new reporters that there was no more time to train. Yeah, but I think that it's still worth going back to,
Exploring.
yeah. And I have the modules. I've done the modules for that. I can do a lecture on it. I am a teacher at heart, Jane. I like to teach. I'm sure you know that because I take the trouble when I'm editing. I will still write something. This should be this tense. You use this tense because the tense you use already is like that. Consistency. So others will just rewrite. No, me, I always take the trouble of explaining why did I rewrite it this way. And just an aside, one of the people I trained, Bettina Unite, who is now with covering Malacanang, she said, I will never forget all those evenings when you will ask me to stand behind your back. Because before it was like that. At the end of the day, they'd all be there. Then they stand behind my back while I edit their stories. And I explain, why did I rewrite this? Why did I do it? And I think now when I see their stories, I feel very proud of them. I'm so proud of those 6 people who have stayed on. And I know each of them and how each of them has behaved. Like si Argil, and I told him so, he was a leader from day one. The day one, he tells me, so and me should work together because this is our schedule. He is such a leader. Si Martin, very polite fellow. When I was always angry at him or pushing him because he's very, very shy. He has blossomed. Martin, now, when you talk to him, very articulate, can explain concepts and stories, and writes very well. His stories are full of substance. He covers the AFP. Martin is so polite that when his term ended, kasi 5 months tayo, di ba? 5 months before you become a
Regular.
Proby.
A Proby.
You will be recommended to a Proby. He did not come in because nobody told him that he made it. So I had to call him. He's that polite. So Bettina, I think, was the first. She trained with a woman who is now a book author who has 3 books. Cha.
Wow.
Echalusi, yeah. I trained Cha, and now she has 3 books, and she gives inspirational talks.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. yeah. So I'm so proud of these people, and I keep in touch with them. I call them my kids. And my family knows when I say my kids, I'm having dinner with my kids. They know it's this group of people I'm talking about. So I hope that we will keep on doing that training thing. Because if you don't train people, you do not have a control of what the bulletin expects them to be. You just allow them to walk around and learn. If they cannot learn it so fast, they misbehave. And we are shocked. Why are you misbehaving? Because they did not know that we have rules. So I hope that we carry that on, James. Maybe you'll think about doing that.
Let's see, ma'am. Yeah, we'll go through the modules. But I think it's a great idea because it's like it's a degree in how many days?
Yeah,
I would like to
yeah.
think it's
Yes,
it's like
yes.
a vocational degree already.
Yeah. Yes. It's like a degree in how many days, yes. And
Kay
I
Ma'am
think,
Pinky pa din. Swerte kayo, Bettina.
actually, I talked to a friend from another paper, and I was telling him, why are you pirating our people? And he said, because I know you trained them. And so I was saying, oh, so now you should pay me.
Yeah. Iba talaga pag si Ma'am Pinky. I went through a lot with Ma'am Pinky. I
Yeah, I
appreciate
know.
everything I learned from Ma'am Pinky.
I know si Jane, she must have been hurt sometimes because ang kopya niya lahat red.
My days talaga na ganyan.
Yeah,
But yeah, I learned from it, Ma'am.
Thank you.
I appreciate all the notes. Because that's how you learn. I mean,
Yeah,
if someone just edits it for you, how will you improve? How will you
Yeah,
help the
that's true.
company? So that's what I do to my kids also.
Yeah.
I make them sit with me and I point them out. Like
Good.
same like the past tense, 'di ba dapat lahat ng tense pareho.
Oo.
So pareho tayong ng mga naive.
Okay.
So you mentioned the training, ma'am. Maybe we can go to how how do you want the next generation of journalists to be? Because you train them. What is your vision? What is your dream for the younger generation?
Well, to those who come in into this vocation or career that we are in, I would like, I hope that before they make up their minds, they don't think of it only as a job. It is not a job. I'm sure you people know by now that there is something that is making you stay on. It is not the job, the salary. Of course, the salary is important because we need to live. But it is something else that's keeping you on here, where you are, not to pursue this kind of lifestyle. It's because it's not a very comfortable lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot schedule your life. If you are only courting a girl to be your wife or your girlfriend, you will lose points already because your time is so unpredictable. You'll be called to do something at the time when you set a date. On Valentine's Eve or day, you will never be with that person because there's always something to cover on Valentine's Day. On Christmas Eve or New Year's Eve, you will not be with your family because there's something to cover. For so many years, when I was still with Tempo, I was a night editor. And I had spent New Year's Eve at the desk. So it came to pass that I would have my wine glass and my champagne with me because I was spending New Year's Eve. And then I could leave at 12:15. Before, in Tempo, well, let me tell you this. Kanina you asked me about how difficult or how did I find it as a woman. Did I have to work twice as hard?
Mm-hmm.
I think in Tempo, when I started, I had to work 3 times as hard, not only because I was a woman, but because I came from Negros. And Negros is reputed to be the land of the baroness, the sugar barons.
Mm-hmm.
So they called me Sugar Baroness. It was like a, a, a nickname.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And they'd make fun of me, Sugar Baroness. So because I had allegedly an affluent background, allegedly, because I came from private school, I was always given difficult assignments like to cover the protest rallies. And at that time, the protest rallies are not the protest rallies that you have now, that you have singing and talking and things like that. There were Molotov cocktails, there were tear gas, there were the Metrocom men with their shields. Those were the way that, and we would walk from Manila here up to wherever is the place where they would all converge. It was risky. It was dirty. It was not fun. So they'd assign me there. Because they just like, I think, to see, can she last? Let us see, can she last? My first assignment in Tempo was to cover a suicide. I was assigned to go to the office of an executive of a big company. The executive had jumped off the window that morning. So my editor said, go to that place, to that company, talk to the people he talked to before he jumped off the window, look at his things in the room, and try to visualize how did he spend his last hours. I am grateful for that editor I worked with for so many years because he had a way of setting my focus, especially for a feature story. That's how I fell in love with feature writing. So anyway, I went there. At that time, you do not like death. At that age, you'd rather not be near people who had just lost somebody. But then I had to do the story. So I had to talk to people. I had to go to that place. I had to talk to the policemen who were checking the place. After that, my editor said, okay, go to Loyola, where he is now being prepared for the wake, and then try to talk to the wife or a member of the family and find out what was his last evening like. I don't even go to wakes of people I know, and then now I'll go to a wake of somebody I don't know, just for a story. So I went there, and I talked to the family, and of course I did not get that story because they asked for privacy,
Privacy.
and because I was not a very aggressive reporter, I allowed them to be. I know you need your time to grieve, but you see, those were the things that I was put through because maybe because I'm a woman, maybe because I came from Negros, but yeah, in a way they would test you and put you in difficult assignments to just see will she last. Maybe she won't be here next year.
But that,
But I
yeah.
learned, and because of that, that's all part of my memory. And so one time, my daughter, long time ago, my daughter was saying, because my daughter's from UP, and she was saying, "Mom, we're in this protest rally, and the police have threatened to release tear gas if we don't disperse." Instead of telling her go home, I said, "Do you have a handkerchief?" "Yeah." "Do you have water?" "Yes." "You wet your handkerchief with water and put it over your nose. You will not, so that it will not sting." And, and her boyfriend says, "That's what your mom said." She did not tell you to go home. No, because I have been in such a situation, covering a story. So that's now they cover through the internet. They cover through most coverages are not face to face.
Mhm.
They go to the website of a company, the website or the social media account of a celebrity, and they get the story from there. But nothing beats going to the scene of where it happened or talking to the celebrity. Stories now lack the details which women, women can see. Uh, Women journalists can see these little things that the men would, you would see the color of the cushion, you can see the disheveled blanket, you can see these things which adds substance and color to a story. So it's sad that because also of digitalization, journalists now just go to the social media accounts and get stories from there. And I hope that if somebody is watching this and who wants to be a journalist, I hope that you'll put it in your mind. There's still a lot of things you can write about
Mhm.
if you go out of your way to go to the scene or to interview the person face to face.
You mentioned earlier that that's how you fell in love with features writing. Can you share the work you've from Tempo till now? Maybe like you've been a motoring
Yeah.
editor. So maybe you can share your journey and maybe a story for each of them, like your fondest memories.
Okay. Wow, that will be a lot. From
Let's know.
covering all sorts
Yeah.
of beats, I covered, I'm a traditional journalist. I did not come in and apply, I want to be in video, I want to be in lifestyle, I want to be in tech news. We all started from the bottom. Police, you go up to an agency, you go up. We started there. So I started with the police, then arts and culture under Ethel Timbol, and then we had travel. I also construction and real estate, motoring, agriculture. I covered agriculture and so many more sections. It's been a learning process. I was the longest in motoring, and I was the first woman editor then. So that was interesting because when you test drive, they don't really believe that you understand the car. They sort of ask you, oh, why do you feel that way? So that was a challenge because women were not really known for their driving skills. My best memory, and that's why now that I retired, I'm going back to motoring and writing about cars. The best memories were of all the car events. We would be sent to many places around the world just to test drive new cars because they're still secret. They're always some hidden somewhere where we're given the chance to test drive these beautiful cars. Then I like motorsports. So I've watched F1 up close. I've talked to F1 personalities. That's why my a post now and I that we are bonding because of that, because suddenly they all fell in love with F1.
Yeah.
I don't know why. The young ones now are just so in love with F1. So I give them all the things that I've gathered from F1. I tell them that I've talked to Michael Schumacher, I've talked to Jacques Villeneuve, I've talked to all these other people, and they'd be so surprised and odd that I was up close to these motoring greats. So those motoring, I think I really like because I like cars. I like cars. I understand cars. I like driving. That's why now, as I age, I'm going back to cars because I now go camping, Jane. I used to climb, hike mountains, which I'm going to back to. But now what I do frequently is to go camping. I have a car camping. I'm part of a group called Senior Car Campers. All of us are seniors, but all of us are passionate about car camping. So we have our car. It's fitted to be a camper, like you have your awning. Some of them have the rooftop tents, but that's really very expensive. And I don't like that because I might fall. You have to go up the tent is on the rooftop, so you have to go up and go down again. My tent is simple, it's just on the ground. But I have a nice bed, an air bed. It used to be just this small, but then I struggle to stand up. I'm old already. I cannot just stand up like you guys. So
Used to be a higher.
yeah. So now it's higher. It's 15 inches.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So at least it's like sitting down. So last week, right after, March 2 to 8 to 9, I was in 3 camps, 3 campsites in 7 days. Putting up the tent, putting it down, packing it up, and then going. And I just like the feeling of being out with nature. I like nature. So I don't mind the inconveniences of being somewhere out there and having very simple and basic toilets. I take my picture in camp, and my daughter would say, "That's a picture I will never be in."
Also, none of your family.
My daughter Jacqueline was a climber.
Okay.
She was the one who inspired me. My son Carlos was the one who was really part of my camping and my climbing. So I suppose I'll go back to that now.
Yeah, and maybe with your grandkids too.
Yeah, I gave all of them camping things and trekking sticks, but nobody's moving.
Well, hopefully, because that's a life skill.
No, they. I think the younger ones now like to have their
Their gadgets.
yeah, and watch a movie. Me, I don't like that. I like going out and walking around. Yeah, so I will be writing about camping very often too.
And we need those tips and places to go to.
Yeah. Okay.
Because it's a great place to bring family. So we've been thinking about it also. So I will follow your recommendations, Miss Pinky.
Okay, Jane.
Okay. So one more question, Miss Pinky. So if you were to host the show, The Sitdown, who would you want to interview?
Well, as a journalist, I'd like to interview always a president of a country. Well, the president of our country would be a good subject. I'm always interested in somebody who leads, especially a country. So, as a reporter, that's always been our aim to cover Malacanang, because Malacanang is the prime beat, and to be with the president and sit with him for a while. I interviewed Pinoy, and up to now I can remember that. I don't know if some of these people have been with me. They took the video. I interviewed him after he was president in his house, and it was a long interview about his boyhood, his father, and himself. Very good interview. I've interviewed also, I think, but that was more or less staged. When I was still in Bacolod and I was the head of the Negros Press Club, President Marcos then, the father of our president now, had something like meet the press, but then you're selected.
Yeah.
And more or less, you had to say your question before. So, but that one was also something that you get to talk to the president as a question. I did not interview Duterte. I don't know why. Maybe because I was so engrossed in the newsroom. But I've interviewed also Ramos, President Ramos, very briefly. But if I had a chance for sit down, I'd like to sit with the president again. Yeah,
Do you have like questions you want to ask?
to ask a president. Well,
Yeah.
one is, what my usual question is, how does your day go, and what time do you wake up? What is the book that you read? What was the last book you read? Because I'd always like to know, is he a reader? And if he reads, what does he read? Because he is our president. We'd like to know how his mind works. Yeah,
Very
that would be
insightful.
interesting.
Yeah.
Maybe sometime in the future.
We will get you
Yeah.
to host.
To interview a president.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Miss Pinky, for that wonderful, insightful interview. So she is our executive editor for Manila Bulletin, and she is retiring by the end of the month. So we will
After 44 years.
see 44 years. So we hope to see you, and I'm
You
sure
will
you'll
see
be
me
reading
around.
more articles from her now that she has more time.
Yes, I'm sure I'll be writing more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And baka bumalik mag-host.
Thank you,
Okay,
Jane.
thank you, ma'am.
you.
So this is Jane King Cheng, editor at large at Manila Bulletin Lifestyle, and this is the Sit Down.